this frame is empty. It's like a blank page. Okay, so now we are going to change the implementation that I showed you. That we have our content with our directive, and yeah, and we just simply got rid of this template part. It can be everything. It can be like a template component, primitives, primitives of course, and something the functions. My name is Konrad Wróblewski, and today I'm gonna say a few words about the content projection. It will be like the introduction from the easiest part to some more advanced. And yeah, so let me take you on the journey into component dev. Okay, but firstly, some words about myself. I am Angular developer in house of Angular. It's all for more than a year. I'm based in Wrocław, so I came here from the city, from the Western Poland, about 40 kilometers from here, 400 kilometers from here. I'm web technologies enthusiast and also Angular Love Meetup speaker, as you can see. And this is also not my first presentation, but first in English. The last one, some private things about my private interest. It's like I am really hiking, sailing, and nature lover. So not only I spend my life not only in front of the computer screen, but also somewhere in nature, in mountains, wherever in the world. Okay, so the short agenda about what I'm gonna say today. First part is some general words about the content projection. What is it all about? What's the topics? What it really is? How it's implemented in Angular and also in other frameworks, libraries, in general in web APIs. Then the implementation in code. From the, as I said, the easiest part, like a single slot, to the more complicated through multi-slot to the dynamic content projection. And then we will try to make it a bit more professional. It may be better. We'll do some improvements. So because there are still area for improvements to make our code better and faster, more professional looking. And the last part will be some curiosities about the content projection, and then I will present you something that refer to the content projection, like the libraries or the another Angular parts, like Angular part that uses this topic and the similar concepts. Okay, so let's start. What is it all about? Let's imagine that your components is like a frame. Initially, this frame is empty. It's like a blank page, tabula rasa, you know. And this is your component, and you are going to change the content that is within it, that are presented, for example, here on this blank page, on this white poster. So our component is exactly like a frame. We'll use it in many times, but in each place it will have a different content. And this content could be just a simple text, it could be image, it could be another component, it's another complicated things. Yeah. So for example, here we can just put inside our frame the Angular logo, but not only the Angular logo, because we can use our frames with many another logos, another frameworks or libraries. For example, like you can see here. But the content projection topic not comes only to these frameworks, libraries, but it's also present in the web API where it's named as slotting. So it's not something precisely correlated with only Angular, but it's something which is inside the web technologies for a long time. Okay, so now some examples from the library probably used. you probably use in your project, like the material, Angular material. It's a common UI library, and here I present you two common use components. Yeah, the first one is the card. The second one is tabs. The first one is much easier because we have the single card, and then we can pass content, table, etc. In this example, we have only a content in code with the simple card. And as you probably know, this content is displayed inside the card. And the second example, we have something more complicated because here we have tapes, and the content that is displayed under the tapes is different for each table. Yeah, for example, here you can see overview, API, and something else, but it's dynamically changing on user action when user do something. For example, click on the tab button. So today I'm going to do with you two content projection simple components. The first one will be something similar to this because it will be the expandable panel. It will be really simple. Here we have the example that you can know and you can recognize from the Angular material. But we are going to do something much simpler because only one card with the title on the top side and with the content which can be expanded or collapsed when user unclick the top part. Okay, so let's go to the implementation part. And here we have our initial project. The initial project uses the inputs when we pass the strings. So in the first code snippet, first code part, you can see the app expansion panel component uses with that which has the two inputs, the title and the content. The title is like Hello Warsaw, the content is Angular Meetup 9. It's really simple, you know how it works. It's just the text passed by the input. And the second part is the template of our component. It's just simple to lives inside another one. The first one is our header, our header, let's say let's name it header, and the second one is the content that can be expanded. So it's there. Then we can see the simple action, the toggle open function that can be called on the click by user, and it collapsed or open or expand or collapse the content part. Yeah, it's very simple and it works. Then we have that interpolation of the title and content properties which we got from the parent component. And on the bottom side of the slide, you can see how it looks. It's really simple. Yeah, it's in the expanded state. So yeah, as you can see, it's really simple, and the code is also really simple. You can try it on yourself how it was. Just click it or unclick using this QR code. It will be shown also in the next slides. Okay, so now we are going to change the implementation that I have shown you before into something that we call the content projection. So the first part of it we're doing something like single slot. So we will pass the only single data element data part. So like in the area between the two component tags, you probably know we have our component tags which commonly and very often are displayed and are written only like the opening tag and then nothing between them, and then the close tag, and between them are the emptiness, so nothing. We don't use it, but we of course can use this space because this emptiness can be fulfilled with this data. And here is how we can use it to pass the content inside our app expansion panel. I just add the string, add this text in between the tags, and then I can get access to them just by using the ng content. And in every place in our component, in this example, that's expansion panels component, we can get access to this data, to this text in this example, just by adding this ng content inside our template, our component template. So the data, in this example, this text, Angular Meetup 9, is projected into our component. Yeah, so we can just use it in any place that we want, but we have still one input, one prop, like the title with the hello Warsaw, but how we can do it to make it, how we can add more than only one slot, one data slot, one ng content, because we have one ng content, we cannot don't have ng content 1, ng content 2, etc. So now we can do the multi-slot content projection. And how we can do it? Just by using ng content and selectors. And what can be the selector? It can be like the attribute, it can be the CSS class selector, it can be something like the mix, also it can be component, etc. But these are the more basic selectors that we can use. And then in our component, in our extendable panel component, we just adding the attribute select when we pass the selector for attribute components, and it will be just the name of this attribute between the square brackets. For the CSS class selector, it will be just dot and then the name of this class. And for something mixed, for example, here we have the button element, that action, which is class, and then save in square brackets, which is the attribute. So yeah, it's probably concept that you already have known. Okay, so let's implement it into our applications, into our application. So, and again, we have this app expansion panels component, and between the tags, between open and closing tags, we have now two divs with two different attributes. The first attribute is the title, the second is the content, and inside them, I added the text that were previously passed inside the input to the input. So now we don't have any input. Our component has another attribute, nothing like directive. It's just the name in single tags. So then in the component we can use each of these elements just by using also ng content, and then using the select attribute with the properly written attributes name. So here you can see it's title with the square brackets and the content in the square brackets. It's all in the lower window with code. And now also we can just check it with the QR code, and you can see that it works in the same way like before, but now we moved from the inputs and from two inputs to fully to content projection. Okay, so that's basically all with the basic part. And now let's go to something more advanced, like the dynamic content projection. And now in this part, we are going to make something like tabs, something similar as you can see in the Angular material library. So it will be something pretty simple. But let's start from what we are going to use in this part. Now, instead of ng content, instead of only ng content, we'll use something like ng container and ng template. So what is it? Ng container is like our frame. It's our frame, but ng template is our content. So that's now we're just changing the naming, and ng container is it's basically this frame that we will fulfill, and which is initially empty, and which is then will be added template. And the Another very important part in here is the ng template outlet directive that allow us to use the template that we will want to use, because it will be changed dynamically. Right? It will be changed dynamically, so this ng template outlet will allow us to dynamically change and show the reference, the element that we are going to show under the selected tab. And another very important difference between the ng template outlet and ng content is that the ng template outlet works more like lazy loading, but the ng content is more eager loading. Okay, but what we are going to do in this part is like a simple tabs component. We have 3 buttons that allow us to change the tab, and then on the bottom we will have the content which corresponds to the tab. So the first one is the image, the second one is the description, and the third one is the sources. That I encourage you to scan this QR code and just see the code and see how it works. Okay, so let's go somewhere further to the implementation. The first part is the ng template. So something in our parent component when we use this my tabs component. My tab is our component, our frame component, which will be fulfilled with different content. So it's our tabs with the button. And here we have 3 tabs and 3 buttons. Tabs are each ng template has different content, and the content is corresponding with the tab. For example, the first one is the image, the second one is just some part of text with description, and the third one is the anchor to the source of the source of the image. And also we have the input that allow us to pass the array with the tab's name, so image, description, and sources. And also we have something new, so the directive my tab that allows us to get access to each of these templates. Okay, so how it looks on our component side. As I said before, we have new component, my tabs component, and it's pretty simple. Firstly, we have the property current panel that has store the reference to the template, to the content, to the ng template that I shown on the previous slide, with the content that we currently show, and also we have the index of the button that is currently clicked, and it allows us to find the proper template, but also this input with array of tabs name. And the most important part is this content children with the temp where which allows us to get access to each of these templates. So this content children, when we pass them to this my tab directive, as I said before, this directive allows us, is like the mark directive, which allows us to read this ng template, and that's when we get the access to it, and that's when we store it on the component side, and then we can do with them what we want. We store in the structure which names is query list, and each of this list elements is another template. We had 3, so here we will have the 3 query list elements. Okay, and the last part is the set tab. It's the function that allows us to just change the tab on the click on any button like image and description. It changes the current panel to the one we desired, and based on the index of the button we clicked. So yeah, basically the same. The implementation of this in the template, you can see. So the first thing is these 3 buttons. each of them has their index 0, 1, and 2, and also we have these tabs, and yeah, and they have just interpolated here the tab name, and we have 3 buttons with different name and with different IDs, and based on clicking on it, we call the set tab function that set the content, and then in the bottom part we have the ng container tag used, and with this ng template outlet directive, which allows us to show the desired and the selected content from the current panel. So we pass the current panel into the directive, and yeah, basically everything works. Okay, so now our tabs are basically finished, and now I am going to show you some ideas that can help you improve your code in the future. Yep. So firstly, we are going to remove the tab names array. It's something that looks pretty ugly, and we don't want to do it previously because it could causes any bugs in the future, because we have to make sure that we have the same length of the names array as the amount of the ng template passed into the component, projected into the component. Yeah. So that's how we have it currently. And now we are going to split them between each of the ng template components. So each of them will get their name. So the first one will get name image, the second description, and the third sources. How I'm going to do it? Just by adding the input to our mytab directive. It can be simply implemented like this. So yeah, currently we don't have anything the app mytabs tag, but in each of ng template we have another tab name with the text, with the name of the tab, which will be then presented inside the button. But what should we do to make it work? Firstly, we have to update the directive. We have to add this input, and that's basically all. The input is added, and now we can pass it just like on the top code part, like you see in that template. And also then we can get access to it using another content children. Now with these tabs, when inside the list we store these directives. Yeah, as you can see, it's query list with the generic type mytab directive, and every tab is this ng template tab and then we have the access to each of the element. So then we also have the access to its properties, like this input tab name, and then we also have the access to its name. So then inside our component template, we can have we just can make a for loop over these tabs from the content children, and we can get interpolated now not only tab name, but then tab name, which is element of each directive. Okay, and that's basically all from this side. So the first improvement we have added. So let's go further. Now I'm going to shorten the templates, because now we use the ng template directive, ng template component, but we are going to remove it. That's how it looks now, and that's how it will look after our changes. So now we don't have ng template with the directives, etc., and then inside it we have our content. Now we have our content with our directive, and yeah, and we just simply got rid of this ng template part, and it can be passed like this, and every tab name is passed to the directive name. So what another improvement we have to do inside the component to get this work? So firstly, inside our directive part, we have to add the constructor and to get access to this template. And then in the component, in our component base, MyTabs component, we can get rid of the content children with these references to the each ng template. Now we have only one with the reference to the tabs by the tabs directive, and because now from the tag directive we also have access to this reference to this content, to its name, etc., etc. So we got rid of the index. And then we update. And then we update the set table function just to set property of our directive tab that template. Okay, and that works. And another improvement is context. And let's start from what is exactly context. The context is the data that we can get from the parent inside our component. For example, our generic component, our frame, has data that we want to pass inside each of the component that we will use inside of them. So yeah, like you can see on this really simple diagram from the MyTabs component, I pass the data into the content that is projected, and then we can use it inside this. So how we can use it? It can be simply implemented by adding the second argument to the ng template outlet directive. It's the context one, and context one can access the object of data. Here you can see something really simple, just object with the one field message with the message, but you can do something more complicated and something more extended. And also it can be just added from the property in the component. But here we have something very simple, just the message, how are you, Warsaw, and that's all. And inside, and then in the parent, we can just use this context, this message that we passed from the component. Simply in our directive, the second part is the message as message, and this message can be displayed, interpolated wherever we want in our parent component. Yeah. Okay. So that's all. If it comes to the content projection, you can use this QR code to check the code and run it on your own and test it, change it. It's the code, the stack blitz, when you can find it and change it on your way. Okay, so let's go further to the last part. Some curiosities about the content projection, and the first thing is the portals. And it's the concept that are built in the Angular, and it's a bit like content projection, but it allows us to get to send the data much further, not only from child to parents, but also to the much further adjacent. For example, the simple use case can be like you have the top bar, and this top bar depends on the data that we have currently on the page, but it's not directly connected. So we can use the portal, and the data for example in this top bar can be changed based on the content, and we just change somewhere else in our app. Yeah, but this content is really it's much deeper. So I really encourage you to read something on your own. We have a great article about it on the Angular Love, so I encourage you to read it. Okay, and the second idea is the Polymorpheus library, and it's the library that allows us to pass the data from inside the component, but not only in the idea like the inputs, but only the text. It can be everything. It can be like a template, component, primitives, primitives of course, and something the functions, and it's a really small library. So I really encourage you to read more about it and test it on your own. Yeah, and that's all. If you have any question, feel free to ask. Also, our online listeners also can just write the questions on the chat. Okay, we had a question about passing ng content into ng content. So just projected the projected element, yeah. Okay. I'm not sure if I accidentally try something like this or did something like this, to be honest. Also, yeah, but yeah, I probably should try it because doing the thing like this, it's really interesting thing. Just passing the projected element into the project and projecting the projected element. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a problem with the content was not attached to the proper slot.
Mm-hmm.
Like projected, but into like this generic slot without selector, even when it was matching the selector. So yeah, but maybe that was some specific case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried and
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
in content projection you have these special attributes that you can specify what slot will match even if there is a piercing from another projection. It's like a nested projection, you have to use an attribute and you project as,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can pass to right kind of couple.
Yeah, we have an idea from here that we can just use ng project as. It's another feature that allow us to specify what type of the content we can use, but as probably the guy that asked the question tried it and they didn't fix it, and also the selectors that it doesn't work. So maybe it's the idea to try it and to and to investigate on our own. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention.